Alright, make a little video. I think I got my sensor alignment set up a lot better. So there's a shot from before. I just did a test before I tightened all the bolts in my, or finished installing all the bolts in the cover for the sensor. And basically that Hall signal to the previous one, which would be 1 electrical revolution, but it's actually 1/4 of a shaft, motor shaft revolution, is now identical. So I'm gonna get it spinning. I think it sounds better too. Still got a little bit of settings to play with, but between settings and different code, that'll all change. So I want to try a couple things here today. Plus I have the regen on right now, so I'm just going to bring it up into Hall sensor only. Bring it up a little bit. It's actually transitioning into sensorless right now. Doesn't like to transition slowly. That's probably just a setting. I got to change it at the end of the day. But I'm just going to get a screenshot or capture that here. So if we were to look at this, I can zoom in a little bit. Actually, we can leave it wide, but bring this over and measure. Believe all Halls are going to be the same size now. So not only is phase like UVW, so we'll call the pink or purple, whatever color that is, W. Not only is that the same from one signal to the next, basically the same. The white, see, like there's a down on the white, there's an up on the white, and the same with the yellow, like there's a down on the yellow and there's an up on the yellow. So that should put my Hall timing set really well. One last thing I want to try is I actually want to lower the car and put a small bit of load against the tires. Not that far, went too far. This is going to be a little bit of a tricky thing to do because I just want to have the wheels touching the ground for a small load, and then we're going to try putting some of these in front of the rear tires so it can't go forward. And I'm going to try and get it to spin the wheels with a little bit of drag on them to see what it's like with the scope hooked up to it and a load. So I'm not sure if I have it high enough. I'm going to just go until I think I'm... Let's just try that, see if it turns. Okay, that's probably a little more load than I want, so let's try a little more weight off the wheels. There we are, perfect. Just like that. You can still hear the little funny sound in Hall sensor. I'm going to try doing a drive. Maybe I'll get another video. Starting to get some tire smoke in here. Alright, I got this thing working pretty good. Got this Hall, the UVW encoder lined up really well so that it actually keeps a really clear signal, and I'm able to regen right down to very low speed, about 7 kilometers an hour or something like that. And right there, that's basically coming close to the stop and then accelerating, and I can it starts pretty smooth. It still shakes a little bit at part throttle when you're like, let's call it half throttle from a stop, but that's because it's just a 6-step encoder. It's not an absolute position sensor. So we'll come to complete stop at this stop sign, and we'll get an idea what it's like at like a quarter throttle. Then I'll stop a couple more times so you can see like low throttle is pretty smooth. So here's a complete stop. So that's like, yeah, about quarter throttle, and it shook just one little step there, and then accelerates nice and smooth and just rolling. We're cruising at like, you know, 50 kilometers an hour or whatever, and just punch it, lays rubber, it's all good. And that's what the power turned down on my regen knob there. It does pretty good. And then I got the regen knob, I can actually let off the throttle. I have variable regen, but I can actually turn the regen up and it slows down even quicker. And I got to regen it right down to 250 RPM of the motor. So that's like a 3/4 throttle start there. You can see how it shook just a little bit. That's as good as it's going to get with a UVW encoder, I believe, because no matter what you do, you can't feed a smooth sine wave into the motor itself when you don't know exactly where it is. You know roughly where it is, you know which phase you're supposed to be feeding the power in, but you don't know if it's the start, middle, or end of that phase, so you don't know what your current should be, because current should be highest in the middle of the phase. I believe that's how it works anyway, but it's basically it's a sine wave, which is a rounded, you know, amount of current going into the motor, depending on the motor's position in that phase. But yeah, otherwise, like, I have no problems. I can 1 foot drive. I'll turn the regen up, so we'll come down to really slow speed here, and turned it up, and now I'll just try and cruise. I'm doing 1 foot throttle, just slowly slowing down using the 1 foot throttle, and then I'll try and hold it at a low speed here. It doesn't conk in and out or anything anymore. I think everything's sorted out really good from doing that, and then basically come right down and just cruise and then get going again, and everything seems pretty good. So I'm gonna come down here and just cruise one little bit more, and then we'll probably go home for dinner, I think. So I'm just basically, that's all regen coming down this steep hill here, putting power back in the batteries, and it's holding it at like 9 kilometers an hour. I can probably even set the regen to come to a lower speed, and then that was like half throttle accelerations, pretty smooth. I am scared of turning the regen to too low of a speed because it used to conk out and shake the shit out of the car, but that was basically because the UVW encoder was sending out different signals depending on which portion of the motor position it was in at the time. So now that it's equal all the way around for a full revolution of the motor, because there was 4 steps, it would have 2 that were advanced and 2 that were retarded in the full revolution of the motor. It was actually pretty rough, but now it seems really good. So, and that's, you know, that's like 70% throttle. I can turn the power up in the controller quite a bit yet. I haven't even turned it up. Like, the motor and controller are about 26 degrees right now. The controller readout on my gauges is not accurate because I haven't even hooked that part up, but the coolant goes through the same thing. It's all of this, the coolant goes through the motor, then through the controller, so the temperature is very similar, and then it goes through a rad, which is cooling it all off while I'm driving. So, and I haven't even put like the fans there, it's not even hooked up on the rad because I don't even really need it unless maybe it's really hot outside and everything's getting hot and I'm racing or something, but I really don't think I need it. But yeah, it's pretty cool. I can just come down to the low speed like this, and basically it'll almost bring me to a stop. Like, it's so close, and that's no brakes, that's just regen. And, you know, on off the throttle here, it's not shaking the car anymore. Doesn't like jump, doesn't shake, doesn't shock it. It's super nice. It's almost like a factory car. You know, it's really close. I bet you, if, you know, even 10 years ago you would consider this factory quality. It's not quite there because of the UVW encoder, but here's another like 3/4 throttle start. We'll shut regen down a little bit, and so that was like half throttle. We'll do another one that's 3/4 throttle in here in a second up the hill. Up the hill I'll show it a little better because it'll actually show how much it shakes. So here we go. Oh, we'll bring it right down to 0 just because that does change it. So that first little step, but other than that, super smooth. So I'm really impressed. That's actually pretty damn good. I'm pretty happy with it. I think basically that's about all I'm gonna do for today. Maybe we'll do one more start right here. So we'll do like, I'll shut the regen right off, and here's like 3/4 throttle. or maybe that was half throttle. I'll try and do 3/4 from the start. That's pretty smooth. I'll turn regen back on. We'll go do one more start down on the other road there. We'll do a full throttle start with the regen shut off. Full throttle starts never seem to be a problem because it keeps consistent torque. Like, it applies enough torque to the motor that it's not bouncing around. What it is like, let's call it roughly half throttle. Seems to be the shakiest because the motor actually has some free play in the motor gears, like the gears off the end of the motor to the gear reduction, and then also has a little free play in the shaft. So if it can bounce around, it'll change torque from one phase to another. Again, right there, that was just 1 foot drive and no mechanical brakes. It's super nice. So shut the regen right off, and here's full throttle from a start. So it rips pretty good and pulls pretty good. No hesitation, just nice smooth torque right from a start. So, and that's with 650 phase amps, I believe, which works out to be about 450 RMS. I believe I can run roughly 200 more phase amps, 150 to 200 more phase amps with these IGBTs, and these are the lower power IGBTs. So this thing's gonna get even faster, like a lot faster. Stay tuned.